We don't have any sound. Do you have any sound?
I have sound. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can now. Yes.
Okay, great. Sure. Okay. Sorry. All right. This man walks into a store and he asks to use the phone. He takes the phone and he makes a phone call, and the owner of the store is listening in, and he hears the phone call. He says, "Hi, I noticed that you have a beautiful garden, and I'm a gardener, and I wanted to know if I could come by and do some work on your garden, because I think I could really make it so much better." So the owner of the home responds, "Thank you very much, but we're really very happy with our gardener, and no thank you. I really am willing to make this work for you. Just try me out. You'll see that I'm an incredible gardener. I will do this at a half price. Thank you, but we're happy with our gardener. I'll actually work for you for free for a week just to see what I could do. You really will be incredibly impressed. Are you sure you don't want me just to try it out for a week?" And the owner of the home says, "Sorry, we're happy with our gardener. Goodbye." They hang up the phone. The owner of the store is watching all this. The owner of the store feels so bad for this guy, and he says, "You know what? I'm a little older than you and have been around, and I want to tell you that you're going to go far. You will make it in life. I see your ambition. I see how hard you're trying. So I want to let you know you shouldn't be upset about this this phone call. You're going to make it." That's what he says. The owner of the store is trying to pump him up. Don't worry about this. But the guy who made the phone call, the gardener, says, "I feel great about this phone call, actually. I feel so relieved." He said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because I'm their gardener." Sometimes, especially now, as we're about to approach Shabbat Bereshit, the first parasha of the year, it's good to take a look at ourselves and see where we are up to. I invited everyone in our community to come to shul this Shabbat, and I actually wanted to bring everyone together, fostering unity, and everyone has been in various minyanim at different homes. And since the Rebbe says this Shabbat, the way this goes this Shabbat, that's the way the whole year would go. So I thought it would be really wonderful to bring everyone together and to celebrate unity. And actually, surprisingly, I saw a letter of the Rebbe this morning about this theme. The Rebbe writes that you have to inculcate into the community the paradigm that people should not make, quote, not making this up, Shabbos for themselves. The context was people shouldn't just decide to try to do their things their own way, but we're all part of one organism, we're all part of one koma achat shlema, part of one body, and therefore we should try to work together. And it's the best way for each person to be successful is by being a part of the koma achat, part of the one community that we are, instead of one person trying to tug in another direction than the other. The very first thing that God said when he made the world was, "Let there be light." And although there was no one there yet to enjoy the light, there was no human beings yet that existed until day 6 of creation. There was no vegetation to enjoy God's creation yet either, since vegetation wasn't created until day 3. And God's light that he made on day 1 of creation was seemingly unnecessary because there was no one there yet to enjoy it. And the reason why God made light first, especially considering the fact that this light wouldn't be used until Mashiach comes. Only when Mashiach comes will God again reveal this light to us that he created on day 1 of creation. So it would seem like this light was unnecessary. Why did God create this before anything else? And the answer is that before God made anything else, God set out the goal for creation. where are we going? And what is the goal of creation? This light that Hashem will reveal, Mashiach will come, this light that will heal everyone who is sick and will resurrect the dead and will bring God's goodness and kindness to be revealed in every single detail of creation. That's why the world is here. So God made the world with this light in mind. This is the goal of creation. That's why he made that light first, saying the goal of everything I'm going to make is all for one reason: let there be light. And then that on that theme, that's why every morning when we get up, the very first thing we do every morning is we say Moda'ani. What that means is, I thank you, God, I connect to you, God, and I want that my day, and I want whatever I'm going to do today, that this should bring light to the world. It's kind of like, reminds me of Babe Ruth or Hank Aaron, who put their bat towards the right field before going out to swing, saying, I'm going to hit that ball out of that fence. It's this kind of like a soldier going out to war. The soldier sings a song before going out to war, a song of victory. No, I'm going to make it. In a similar way, before we begin the whole year, the very first Shabbat, we read the words of God, let there be light, which is to tell us the message that we have to have that same kind of perspective ourselves, that we want to bring light, we want to bring the coming of Mashiach, when there won't be any sickness or suffering or sadness or jealousy. That's where we're going. I wanted to focus on tonight a largely discussed question and go a little deeper into this question than I've seen people usually discussing it. And it's something which is very relevant to each of us. It is the story of the tree of knowledge that we read about in this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion isn't just a Torah portion. The Rebbe says the way the Shabbat goes, the way the whole year goes, is because the story of creation is a source of all of history. It's a source of each of ours personal history. We all emanate from Shabbat Bereshit. That's where we all come from. So understanding a little bit more about the challenge of Adam and Eve and how they overcame that challenge or didn't overcome that challenge, as we shall see, that is where we will get personal insight to ourselves of where we need to be and to give advice to ourselves out of the box of how to get there. So Adam, the Zohar says, contains in his soul every single soul that will ever be born. So really, he is a mirror of ourselves. So he is told by God, you could eat from any tree that you want, but do not eat from the tree of knowledge, the tree of good and evil. First of all, what is a tree of good and evil? There's good apples and there's bad apples. What is a tree of good and evil? What does that even mean? Second of all, what does that mean that is a tree of knowledge? If you shouldn't eat from it, it's not kosher, don't do it. It's not kosher, don't do it. And if you do, boom, you'll become intelligent. You'll know about good and evil. The Maimonides ask, it seems like you're gaining by sinning. So how does that make sense? And why are we saying that Adam only got knowledge because he ate from the tree? Before he ate from the tree, he didn't have any knowledge. It seems that Adam was very smart. Even before he ate from the tree, the Talmud says that the angels came to God and said, God, why in the world are you creating man? What's so good about man? And God says, man is very intelligent. Let me show you how intelligent he is. And God gathers all the angels to see the intelligence of man. And what happens? The angels come down to earth and God brings all the creatures of the world before Adam. And Adam declares the name of every creature. This is a cow. This is a bull. This is a rabbit. He says the name of every creature. What was so intelligent about that? Even though we have many languages all over the world and you could pick any name for anything in the world, but the reason why it's considered so amazing is because Adam didn't just give each creature a random name. He was able to perceive the inner energy, the godly energy in each creature through which God brings it into existence. The Hebrew name of every creature is its godly energy. So when Adam looked at a bull, he saw the letters of the Hebrew language, Pei Resh. He saw the inner energy of the bull, and that's how he knew the name. He even knew the name of God. He said, you are called God, Adonai, because you are the master of all of your creatures. How did Adam know that? Because Adam was given this amazing insight within all of creation. So that is why God brought the angels to earth to see how incredibly intelligent he was. And angels saw he was intelligent. So what do we mean when he say he ate from the tree and then he had knowledge? What didn't he have before? They gained by eating from the tree. And if he gained, how come sin helps him gain? What does that mean? There are many things that we're not allowed to eat, and we're pretty good at it. How come it was so hard for Adam not to eat from that tree? Before Simchat Torah, there's a series of prayers we say called Hoshanot. In the Hoshanot, we say, some people have the custom of saying, Hoshana Shalosh Sha'ot, save us of the 3 hours. What are the 3 hours? What does save us from the 3 hours? There are many interpretations of save us from 3 hours. One interpretation is Adam was told at 9 o'clock not to eat from the tree. At 12 o'clock, he would have been allowed to eat from the tree. He only had 3 hours that he was forbidden to eat from the tree. And still he succumbed to the sin and ate from the tree. So in a similar way, it says in many Svarim, many holy books of Jewish ethics, that when the evil inclination inside of us tries to rile us up to do the wrong thing, it's always an issue of timing. Very often you could say to the evil inclination inside of you, hey, I'll deal with you guys soon. I'll go for that later. But right now, let's push this off. By pushing things off, we find in history, in the story of King David and Bathsheba, in the story of Moses and the tablets, in the story of Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge, we find again and again that by pushing things off a little bit, the problem would have been solved. In a similar way, in a personal level, we could solve a lot by pushing off any negative, by pushing off the negative inclination a little while away. And yet, that's just a side note, and yet Adam and Eve are given this instruction, which we are given many similar instructions, and yet they succumb to sin. Why? They heard directly from God. Not just they heard God's voice. They felt God. They saw God. And yet they were unable to withstand this test. Why? What's going on? Why couldn't they overcome this very short test? What was missing? Why did they, what made them slip up? Another question about the snake. The Talmud, the Torah, describes the snake as very wise. What was so wise about the snake? The snake was wicked. Why is the snake called so wise? So there is a word that we are familiar with in the Jewish lexicon, Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. Adam and Eve did not have an evil inclination. So how could they possibly have made this mistake? If they had no evil inside themselves, why did they make this mistake? So the short answer, well, actually, I don't know how short it's going to be. Sorry, guys, but it's deep. Let's try to keep your thinking cap on. It's worth it. Let's give us some perspective on a lot of things going on in our own lives. In Kabbalah and Chassidut, there are 3 intellectual capacities that are discussed. There's a power of Chachma. Power of Chachma means the power to invent an idea, the power to create an idea, the power of innovation. The word Chachma is made up of 2 words, the power of what? Because when you are trying to figure something out and you have a sudden insight, it's called in Kabbalah a lightning flash of inspiration, you don't know yet what you have in your mind. If someone says to you, hey, what are you thinking about? You can't explain. I have the answer. What's the answer? You don't really know what it is. You know you got it. That's Chachma. Then there is Bina. Bina is the ability to take that inspiration and to chop it up into 1,000 pieces. And Bina means to understand it, to make it make sense to you. But after it all makes sense to you, there's another soul power called Da'at. Da'at is the ability to connect to the idea. Not just to understand it, not just to have the insight, but to really feel it. On every cigarette carton in the United States, it says, Surgeon General's warning, smoking is dangerous to your health. But it's possible that those who are the most knowledgeable about smoking may be the biggest smokers. And the reason is not because they don't know the problem. It's because it's something which is just in the mind. It's not something that they actually feel subjectively. It's more objective, not subjective. It's not how I feel, just a truth. King Solomon isn't considered to be bar mitzvah. He's not considered to be responsible for his actions till he turns 13. Why is 13 the age? Isn't King Solomon smart enough to know what to do and what not to do? Wouldn't we want to go to the 6-year-old King Solomon and say, King Solomon, give us advice? Wasn't he the wisest of all men? Why is he only considered bar mitzvah at the age of 13? What changes at 13? What changes is da'at. Da'at means the ability to feel the reality of a situation, not just to know it intellectually, but to feel it subjectively, to feel it emotionally, to be connected to where you are. Da'at, this third soul power, is our ability to connect to things. Imagine some family, God forbid, they're in Cedars, and the doctor is telling them, unfortunately, the Tzemach Tzedek says a doctor is only meant to heal. It's not meant to give us negative premonitions and negative feelings. But if a doctor, God forbid, is in that mode of saying all the things that he shouldn't say, and he's explaining it to the patient's family, it's possible the patient's family are going to faint. The doctor knows it so much better. He's just explaining it. Why? What's the difference between the doctor and the family? It's very simple. It's not his family. It's not him. He's just talking about somebody else. And therefore, he's able to take it all coolly because it's not him. That is the ability that we have to become a part of something. So we have different kinds of dat, different kinds of connection. We have Adam, before he had the sin of the tree of knowledge, what he had was only one reality, only a soul, only a godly soul. This godly soul that Adam had made him connect only to spirituality, made him only connect to holiness, made him only connect to the right thing. After the tree of knowledge, after he ate from the tree, there was a change. There was now no longer a connection just to one reality, just the truth of God. It's called a tree of knowledge of good and evil. It gave him the ability to connect personally, emotionally, and to identify and to feel an attraction to and a connection to evil. There are a lot of things that we know about that we don't really consider to be, we're not connected to them. God forbid, different kinds of emotional character traits which are very unique, that are not relevant to most people. Like think about Nazis and their bestial way of attacking in the most stunning ways of hurting people. It's something we're aware of. We don't have any connection to that. Some people have an addiction to certain things that for us who consider them to be violent and but that's their dat, that they're connected to that. We know we're aware of such a thing. We don't have a connection to that. That's how Adam was before the sin. He had no connection at all to anything evil. He only had connection to one kind of reality, to the truth of everything, to God. What is evil? What happened as a result of the tree of knowledge? The Berditchever Rebbe, who was actually his anniversary of passing was this week, Berditchever Rebbe said, very short, very briefly, explain the difference between Adam before the sin and Adam after the sin. Before the sin and after the sin, it's like this. After the sin, it's I think, I feel, I want. That's after the sin. There's an ego. Before the sin, there's just this purity of spirit. There's just truth. There's no I. There's no ego. It's the ego, which is called in Kabbalah klippa. Klippa means a shell. A lot of times, you feel that there are a lot of guests in your brain, a lot of people hanging out. A friend of mine told me that before Simchas Torah, it's customary among Chassidim that we don't just dance, but we try to get involved in the mood of dancing. We have a little farbrengen, we get together, we talk, we say l'chaim, we sing, try to get into the mood to identify a little bit more with the dancing. Someone was remarked, that when dancing with the Torah is a soul thing. It's a neshama. It's who we really are. That's who we really are. Then there's another part of us. There's our ego. What is the ego? The ego is the klippa. The word klippa means it's a shell. It's a cover-up. It's not who we really are. Imagine someone gave this analogy to this man that really it changed his life. This analogy. Imagine this. There's a study that was done about various electric currents that can be sent to the brain. Imagine instead of deciding to move your hand upwards, let's say, you go into and to put these what's it called, nitrodes or something, whatever, from this electrodes on your head, and this computer sends electric shocks to various parts of your body, and it gets your body to move in different ways. It's not you that's moving; it's your body is getting sent these electric signals, and that's what's making your body move around. It's not you. In a similar way, sometimes you feel there are guests hanging out in your head, in your heart, that aren't really you. They're not you. They're just things that happen to you, but they're not really you. That's because that's what the animal soul is. That's what the klippa is. That's what happens as a result from eating the tree of knowledge. There is this other layer that God put on us called the ego, which makes us have a whole foreign set of thoughts and feelings. And the challenge is to connect beyond how way things seem on the surface to our inner self, to how we really feel, to turn off all the noise and to really think and feel the way we really do inside in our soul, and not to fall prey to the way things are on the outside. All the time people are angry and they're happy and they're jealous. What will this person think about me? What will that person think about me? This guy bought 8 cars. He was very into cars, loved cars, bought 8 cars. And before he died, he bought 8 burial plots. Why do you buy 8 burial plots? He wants to bury the cars with him. He wants to be remembered. Okay, but how is the guy going to be remembered, right? The guy with the 8 cars that are now. So there are a lot of things we do for others. A lot of times we have worries. We think it's all our ego trying to be relevant. This person insulted me. This person hurt me. This person hurt my feelings. It's not me. It's the shell. It's the husk. It's the tree of knowledge. It's as a result of Adam eating from the tree that became this sense of I am, I understand, I feel, and made us lose a little bit of touch with our inner self. There was a famous tzaddik called the Kotzker Rebbe who was extremely sharp. He once said, when you feel tempted to do the wrong thing, you know what you have to feel? You have to feel as if the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is standing in front of you with a knife, trying to kill you. That's the truth. The evil inclination isn't our friend. All of his ideas are going to hurt us. When you're tempted, he says, picture there's somebody there with an axe. And he says, what if you can't picture that? What if you can't picture the guy with the axe? He says it's a sign the guy chopped out your head off already. If you can't picture the guy with the axe, if you can't get that sensation that something really important is at stake, that means that the guy has already done something to you. He's already chopped already, chassidus, God forbid. So Adam and Eve are in the garden and they don't have an evil inclination yet, and yet they are tempted and yet they succumb to sin. How did this happen? So I'm going to tell you 2 explanations. First is explanation given more of a from peripheral, more superficial explanation, and let's get into a deeper Hasidic explanation. One explanation is like this. Imagine you're angry on Sunday and you're angry on Wednesday. You have 2 feelings of anger. And you're able to handle the feeling of anger on Sunday, and anger of Wednesday, you're not so able to handle, and you let it go. Imagine now, today is Thursday, you're given a feeling of double, the feeling of Sunday and Wednesday put together. Too much. Imagine if not only feeling the anger of Sunday and Wednesday, you're given the feeling of all the times you were angry in your life. Imagine not only you, let's forget about you for a second. Imagine all the times people were angry in history. All of the anger of all of history is put together in one person, in one scenario. It's an atom bomb of anger. Whoa, no one can withstand that. Now, let's not just talk about anger. Let's talk about all kinds of sin, all kinds of lust and passion and jealousy and all the negative stuff. And all that put together and concentrated in one person, in one specific challenge. Incredible atom bomb, blow up the whole world. That's what Adam was experiencing because things were so important. Therefore, it was so hard for him to overcome this challenge. But I want to tell you a deeper meaning of this challenge. And this deeper meaning will also give us insight to a wondrous medrash. The medrash says that when the snake told Adam and Eve why they should eat from the tree, the snake said, God doesn't want you to eat from this tree. You know why? Because he is afraid that you'll eat from the tree. And when you do, God is thinking, this is what the snakes tell them, that you're going to be just like him. You're going to build worlds and destroy worlds. Build worlds and destroy. What does that mean to build worlds, destroy worlds? What does that mean? So there's an incredible teaching of Mizdrisha Magid about this. But before we get there, let's go to a famous story that we've all heard before. Talmud says a story about this man who wanted to convert to Judaism. He came before the sage Shammai, and he said to Shammai, teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot. Shammai sends him away and he pushes him away, the Talmud says, with a measuring rod that's used for construction. Then he goes over to Hillel, and Hillel, I'll teach him the whole Torah, why I stand on one foot, and Hillel says, what is hateful unto you, don't do it to anybody else. Now, Shammai is the one who tells us, always greet people with a smile. How come he's so stern with the guy? Why does he push him away? And what did Hillel tell him? You can't know the whole Torah on one foot. What does it mean? So the one explanation is like this. What the man wanted, really, was to always stand on one foot spiritually, to always get it right. He didn't want to be in a state of elevation and descent, going up and down, right and left, having good days and bad days. Let me just always get it right. Hashem, I want to be guided to your Torah. If this Torah is a Torah that's a Torah of 1 foot, I want to get a Torah of 1 foot. I want to get a Torah where I could always make it. So Shammai says to him, man, you got it all wrong. He pushes him away with the building measuring tool. You want to know what the world is built on? The world is built on failure. The world is built on mistakes. It's all about the mistakes. You can't have a world without the failure. You can't have a world without the mistakes. You want to have a world with standing on one plane. You got the wrong. You don't understand how the world works. Period. You're out. You don't get it. Then he goes to Hillel. What did Hillel tell him? It says Magid, unbelievable. Magid says like this. Why do you want to be Jewish? Where is it coming from? Where is this thought coming from? Where is this feeling coming from? So Kabbalistically, the way it works is, when God forbid, a person succumbs to sin. So what happens is, he doesn't just make a mistake, but he brings divine, holy, godly energy into the realm of the unholy. That's what happens. When he decides to do teshuvah, he decides to return to God, he is now elevating all of the negative energy that he's brought to the unholy side. He's bringing it back. He's elevating those sparks back to holiness. Said the Magid, do you know why you want to be Jewish? You're okay not being Jewish. Maimonides says that if you're not Jewish, but you keep the 7 laws of Noah and you trust in God, you have a share in the world to come. What is inspiring you to change everything? You know why you're being inspired? Because somebody else made a mistake and they brought godly energy to the unholy side. And when they did teshuvah and they repented, they elevated a lot of sparks. Your spark was elevated too. And that's where your inspiration is coming from. So now that you've been elevated, and now that you've been guided in this direction, and now you're asking that you want to never fall again, don't you know that the only reason you were elevated is because someone else fell? Would you do to the guy who helped you? Would you treat him evilly? He helped you by his mistake. Would you want to always stand on one foot and never fall? It's specifically because you fell, the other guy fell, that he's able to lift you up. If you don't fall, you won't be able to lift anyone else up. That's the meaning of building worlds and destroying them. God told Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree. The snake said, I want you to eat from the tree because you'll be able to bring the world down a notch. God wants a home in the lowest realm. Let the world be lower. Build a better world for God. The people of Chelm, they're actually very smart people, but they got bad rap because everyone was jealous of them. People of Chelm had a question. What is greater, the light of the sun or the light of the moon? Light of the moon, light of the sun. They had a question. They debated this for 2.5 years. They couldn't figure it out. Till one day they came to the conclusion. The light of the moon is greater. Why is light of the moon greater? Because the light of the sun is shining during the daytime. What's a big deal to shine during the daytime? The moon shines during the nighttime when it's dark. Oh, that's something special. The sunlight during the daytime, big deal. That's what the snake was telling Adam and Eve. You're pure, you're holy, you're shining. That's not a big deal. I want you to taste the tree of knowledge and bring in the ego into the world and then bring light to the world. That would be something special. That was the sin. That was a mistake. But the truth is, as a result, there was an additional God's intent. I'm not getting to it right now, how God's intent versus divine providence versus God's will, and how could God intend to do something which was a sin. But ultimately, there is a creation that was being built through that mistake, and there's a creation that each of us can build. I want to tell you an amazing story, incredible story. There are different kinds of worlds we can build. I'll tell you 2 stories, and I'll let you guys go. This guy goes into a tailor to get a suit. This tailor measures him, makes him a beautiful suit. But the tailor is a bit of a schlock. You know what a schlock is? He makes the right sleeve shorter than the left sleeve. So the guy goes in, tries on the suit, and he tries to put on the suit, and the right sleeve is shorter than the left sleeve. He says to the tailor, what's that? The tailor says, you're not wearing it right. You got to wear it like this. Then it'll fit right. Says, but if I wear it like that, my right shoulder is above my left shoulder. You have to lift your head up like that. So then, and then what? My pants are going above my ankle. So you have to walk like this. And the guy walks out of the tailor, like he knows how to wear a suit, right? He's walking like this out of the tailor, and a little boy says to his dad, "Dad, wow, look at that tailor." The guy walked out of the tailor. That guy is so deformed, and yet the tailor was able to make a suit that fits him perfectly. What an incredible tailor. Sometimes we try to fit ourselves into the way the world wants us, what we think the world wants us to look like, the way the world expects us to be. We listen to the ego, the animal soul. That's one way of living. But I want to tell you an incredible story about soul, about listening to our inner voice, about how to start off our year with Let There Be Light. There was a woman named Francine Christoph. She was born on August 18th, 1933. She was 8 years old when she went to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp with her mother. Her mother was given the prestigious position of being a block commander and therefore had certain privileges that other inmates in Auschwitz did not have. The Nazis had said when they rounded up the Jews, they could take something for your children. So her mother took 2 pieces of chocolate, 2 bars of chocolate. And when they got to Auschwitz, she told her daughter, if ever you feel that your life is ebbing away, you feel you can't live any longer, I'll give you the chocolate. And this little girl loved chocolate. She said, I can have some now. No, not now. But if you ever feel you really need it, I'm going to give it to you. Day goes by, a week goes by, a month goes by. She's dreaming day and night about that chocolate. Imagine a little girl in chocolate in Auschwitz. She's dreaming about the chocolate all day and all night. She wants just that chocolate. And one day, a woman tells her mother, this woman's name is Helene. Helene tells her mother that she is pregnant and she's about to give birth and she needs help. In Auschwitz, it wasn't possible for the Nazis always to tell who was pregnant or not because people were bloated because of the hunger. There was very little food. You couldn't really tell. And she got permission because of her position as block commander to whatever it's called, block. She was in charge of her block. Because of that, she was allowed to bring her to the infirmary, to the hospital, if you will, in Auschwitz, which was usually another place to go before the gas chamber. But because of her position, she was able to go there and to help her give birth. And she told her daughter before she went there, Francine, this woman's about to give birth. She's going to be very weak. I want her to have the chocolate. Can I give her the chocolate? And Francine, little 8-year-old girl who was dreaming about this chocolate for months, and she really wanted the chocolate, but her soul woke up and says, Mom, give her the chocolate. It's okay. So her mother went and she successfully helped this woman, Helene, give birth and gave her the chocolate, the baby some of the chocolate, and incredibly, the liberation wasn't for the 6 months, I think January, but for 6 months, they kept the baby alive under some rags in Auschwitz. Unbelievable. The baby did not cry until Liberation Day. They put the baby under rags. It did not make a sound for 6 months. It's an incredible miracle of God. Don't ask me to explain it. It's just a miracle. And then when they took the rags off the baby and by Liberation Day, all of a sudden the baby started to scream. Miracle. Anyways, years go by. Francine's daughter asks Francine, Mom, what would you think would happen if there would be psychologists and psychiatrists and medicine and Prozac greeting you with those American soldiers when they freed you in Auschwitz? Do you think life would be different for you? Many people whose parents were Holocaust survivors have a very hard time because their parents just couldn't relate, but haven't gone through what they've been. And she asked her mother, do you think psychologists and psychiatrists would have helped? She tells her daughter, I think that would have done a lot. You know what? I want to give a lecture about this subject. And she invites psychologists, psychiatrists, and she invites Holocaust survivors to discuss what would have happened had the American soldiers been accompanied by psychologists and psychiatrists and medicine on Liberation Day. One woman gets up by this event and she says, I have something to share. She was a psychologist. She says, I have something to share. But before I do, I want to give something to you, Francine. She calls up Francine to the podium. And she says, here, this is for you. Here are 2 bars of chocolate. That woman was my mother. This woman, the daughter of Helene, grew up. She has children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all because of 2 bars of chocolate. Those 2 bars of chocolate gave birth to worlds of goodness, of kindness, of holiness, of faith. And this is what God empowers us to do in this coming Shabbat, Shabbat Bereishit. God empowers us to say to ourselves, let there be light. That this year we are going to do something different that we haven't done before. We're going to add in the goodness and kindness to bring about the coming of Mashiach, when God's, so to speak, dream will be fulfilled, when the world will be full of God's light, and those who passed away will live again. There won't be any suffering, sickness, or sadness. And God empowers us in these last moments before Mashiach comes to make that dream a reality, and make that decision a reality, that we're really going to get in touch with our inner soul, who really are, and do that one good thought, one good word, one good action that could tip the scale and bring Mashiach to the entire world. That's how we're supposed to start every morning. Moda Ani, let there be light. That's supposed to be the focal point of where we want to go this year, to make that a reality, because we're really living at this time of the coming Mashiach. And with that perspective, whatever's going on, we may be that like a little girl in Auschwitz who holding out that chocolate bar. Really, I want this. But with that, we'll be starting off with that perspective. Let there be light. It gives us that ability to make the right decision. Anyways, that's what I wanted to share tonight. Any questions, comments, criticism, tomatoes? All right. Have a good night. All the best. Thank you, Yehuda, for joining. Thank you, Isaac. All the best. Sei gesund.